Hello, this is the weekly Tradecast. I'm Sarah Toms. All this year we're celebrating the 60th anniversary of UN Trade and Development with a series of special episodes. We're talking about how trade and development transforms lives and builds better futures. And we're looking at the big themes that will drive our vital work in the next 60 years. Coming up now?
I do believe that although the situation is challenging, that there will be leadership coming from powerful country and less powerful country to work together to address the root causes of inequality and of the imbalances. And I also believe power and change can come from people.
This week we have special guest Marina Ponti, Director of the UN Sustainable Development Goals Action Campaign. In 2015, UN members signed up to 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, that range from ending extreme poverty to tackling the climate crisis. The SDGs are supposed to be met by 2030 to fulfill the promise of a better future for people and the planet. But trillions of dollars are needed to meet the targets, and efforts are faltering at a time of turmoil and tensions. Since 1964, when UN Trade and Development was created to promote a fairer economic system, the world has seen many sets of challenges and opportunities. Now and into the future, the SDGs are vital ways to improve people's lives by addressing inequality, sustainability, and climate change. So how can we get back on track? Well, to find out, we're joined now by Marina Ponti, Global Director at the UN SDG Action Campaign. Welcome to the show, Marina. It's so great to have you here today from Bonn. Could you give an overview on what the SDGs exactly cover? Because it's quite a long list, isn't it? And why is it so important to countries to reach their goals by 2030 or indeed at all?
Thank you. Such a pleasure to have this conversation in a very important time. The SDGs cover people's aspiration. As you mentioned, they cover the need for decent jobs, for quality education, for health. They cover the need for green energy, for sustainable consumption and production, for clean air, for a very healthy lifestyle. So they represent the vision for a future which is sustainable, which is fair, and which is peaceful. And although there are 17 and the list is very long, they really represent a vision for climate and social justice. So if I have to summarize them, they represent a just vision for a future where there is a pact between current generation and future generation, between powerful countries and developing country, and is about redistribution of resources and opportunities.
Where are we now then with the SDGs, and where should we be?
We are off track, and I think we can see it if we watch the news every day. There's conflict, there is climate change, and there is violence and inequalities everywhere around us. But what we've seen during the COVID pandemic is change can happen, and can happen also very quickly when there is a vision and a sense of urgency. So change can take place, and we can go back on track towards the Sustainable Development Goals. And what's happening now is that our economic system is not promoting, people and the planet, but is actually undermining and exploiting people and the planet for economic return. So we simply need to flip the script. We need to make sure that the economic system serves people and planet and not the other way around.
So what will the world look like if we don't meet these targets then? And what about if we do manage to meet them? What's the difference?
I want to start with the positive, because I do believe the people, even the most vulnerable, they're extremely resilient. And we see it in situations of conflict, in situations of poverty. The people don't give up. So I do believe that although the situation is challenging, that there will be leadership coming from powerful country and less powerful country to work together to address the root causes of inequality and of the imbalances. And I also believe that power and change can come from people. And this is all the campaign is about, is to inspire people to choose to hope first and to choose to take action. Hope is not naive. Hope is brave. Hope makes us take an action, take choices, how we vote, how we consume, what we say, how we include others, how we think of others. And those actions and those choices adapt to change. So if everybody takes the right action at the right time, which is now, we can likely see a world where resources are equally distributed, where developing countries can grasp the benefit of global trade, of opportunities, of technology, of innovation, where natural resources are protected and are handed over to new generation. If we don't act, that's also a choice. But the choice of not acting means a choice of continuous violence, conflict, of inequality, of conflict on social unrest. And somehow this is what nobody wants.
Now, obviously, we're not quite on track at the moment. So what are the big hurdles in getting there? Is it the amounts of money that's needed, or competing priorities, or geopolitics, or indeed something else?
So I don't see the lack of money being the problem. We see a wealth of assets around us. And we see also a lot of resources lost. If we see at the issue of taxation, every year developing countries lose $480 billion in tax avoidance or tax evasion. And those resources could be invested in health and education. So it's not about the lack of resources, it's the lack of mechanism of that redistribute the resources. And somehow one of the big hurdles is the current international financial architecture, which was designed 80 years ago and now is unfit to ensure a stable and a fair system and to give opportunity and a voice to everyone. If we look at the issue of debt, this is an issue that needs to be addressed in a transparent and fair forum. More than 40% of people live in countries that spend more on repaying debt services than on health and education. And the situation is only going to deteriorate because those governments are borrowing in a foreign currency that they cannot control. And the interests are set by institutions where they don't have a say. And if we look in the last few years, we notice additional injustice, like for richer countries, it's cheaper to borrow money on the market than for developing and the least developed country. So there are imbalances in the architecture of how the economy are run that need to be addressed so that developing countries are not dependent on handout or official development assistance, which is continue to be crucial, but they can fulfill their potential. They can access more fair trade opportunity. And again, trade is another engine for sustainable development. But current rules don't allow everyone to benefit from this.
What can developing countries do on their own, and where do they need help?
There are several proposals. First of all, to put people and the planet first, and then to support women. The care economy is the best investment. Social protection is another investment that can help people and the most marginalized group to be part of the society and to contribute to build a better future. But at the same time, many obstacles are beyond individual government. So the issue is to bring government together so that the developing country in a forum like UN Trade and Development can really work together to try to address some of the imbalances and to have a louder voice in decision-making within the economy.
What are the UN SDGs action campaign and the UN Trade and Development recommending as the best and most realistic ways to help countries achieve their sustainable development goals?
So, first of all, address trade imbalances. So the trade regime should really allow developing countries to grasp all opportunities. So value chain, so the developing countries need to be able to profit more from global trade. A second issue is also about intellectual property rights. We've seen it with COVID. Although there were needed vaccination to protect humanity, developing countries were not allowed to produce vaccine in their country because of international property rights. So there also need to be a reform in the way innovation and technology is managed and transferred. Another issue is taxation. So we need to be able within a UN entity to discuss the issue of taxation. Corporations must be taxed where they produce their income. So the wealthier people need to be taxed. So we need to create mechanisms, transparent mechanisms where taxation happens and developing countries have more resources to protect the environment and to support their people.
And how close are we to any of these actions?
I'm optimistic. The Summit of the Future, which is happening in September, for the first time has, at the heads of state level, the reform of the international financial architecture. The Secretary General of the United Nations has been extremely explicit on the need to address this reform, on the need to give a voice to everyone, on the need to reform this architecture that is in favor of rich and powerful interest group, but not about the majority of the people, and not supporting the natural resources and the planet. So we need now to really push government to cooperate rather than compete, and to really think of future generation and to have a legacy so we build a future that is peaceful, that is fair, a future of justice and human rights.
You mentioned the Summit of the Future. What should the markers of prosperity and progress be in the future, and what do you hope can be achieved in the next 60 years?
So my biggest hope is that we move away from measuring everything with economic terms. So we talk about people and the planet, but then when we list country and when we list company, we only mention their economic return. And so my expectation is that we change the marker. We go beyond GDP and we start measuring and assessing country companies, not only by the income they produce, but also by we discard some of the damage, the pollution, or some of the violation of human rights, so that we not only measure economic return, but also the impact on people and the planet. And by changing those indicators, those markers, as you said, we can change the priority, and we can also reshuffle who will be the G7 accordingly to new indicators and new markers. Not necessarily the richest country will be at the top. So that, to me, could be a transformative change that can really make this emphasis on people and planet real. And I believe that many people, particularly young generation, are changing their mindset. Money is not the only objective, and people see all the negative impact of certain economic policy and certain economic activity. So let's change the marker so then we can change the behavior and we can incentivize new journeys and new processes and new sustainable strategies.
It's a really interesting concept, Marina. It's nice to end on a positive note. So thank you to the UN's Marina Ponti for being this week's guest. Tune into the weekly Tradecast next week and every week for more insights on the most pressing issues around the world of trade and development. And there's even more on our website, unctad.org. I'm Sarah Thomas in Geneva. Goodbye for now.